Welcome back to Identities Umhlobo. We're talking about the issues of debt in Zimbabwe, the public debt and public finance management series. And before we went on the break, we were already being taught about what is the situation about debt in Zimbabwe. But we want to look at some of the strategies, gentlemen, as we are wrapping up this program. What are some of the strategies that the government is taking to implement in as far as, coming out of debt is concerned, so that they are able to also borrow in the future? As you rightfully say that no man is an island, you need others to exist.
Okay, the starting point is let's get our priorities right. As a nation, as a government, we should get our priorities right. When we borrow, what exactly are we borrowing for? Then secondly, we should also make sure that the oversight function of the parliament, whatever we are borrowing should be approved by the representatives of the people. We want to make sure that everyone is included. And how do we make them included? Through their representatives, through the MPs, the senators. They should debate and see the validity, how feasible it is, and how are we going to pay that. It's very important. Then the third one, if we are using the treasury bills from the domestic market, let's also consider issues like, for instance, if the government heavily borrows from the local market, are we not going to crowd out other players who also need the same resources for job creation, for other services? So those are some of the issues. If it is international, when we borrow, let's look at the terms and conditions. What is the grace period like? What is the repayment period? Is it after 5 years? Is it the short term, the medium, the long term? Because if it is the short term, it will be very expensive. But the longer term we take, the less expensive. So these are some of the issues, the strategy that we should have. Then another thing that I think is very also important. The debt management unit is housed in the Ministry of Finance. I think there is an anomaly there. The Ministry of Finance is heavily involved in the borrowing. So how do we expect now a department housed there also to manage the debt? Let's have it as a standalone and autonomous structure, which has the responsibility like, any other, like ZESA, like AIRZIM, which has a separate budget and staff not dependent on this. I think that way we might go a long way in managing.
Thank you very much for your opinion. This is a doctor from the University of Zimbabwe. We understand he's got his own opinion. Yes.
As you are aware, we say that Zimbabwe is already in a debt crisis or debt distress. It has defaulted on its obligations. So what is available to the country is the problem with the multilateral debt, for example. It has to re-engage with the creditors. It has to talk with the IMF and the World Bank and see how best they can restructure these debts, especially after repaying the arrears. If it's bilateral debt, they have to talk with the Paris Club, where they can enter into rescheduling of the debts. The same with the commercial debts. They have to engage the creditors so that the options are available. For the multilateral debt, other countries before have gone into what they call HIPIC, Highly Indebted Poor Countries Initiative, that saw levels of debts of a number of countries like Zambia, Malawi, Mozambique before. They can go for that option and they have to engage the creditors. For the bilateral debts, as I said, they have to engage the Paris Club. But what is important is responsible borrowing. Grow your economy, for example, is a strategy so that the economy can handle high levels of debts. But you grow the economy, you also borrow responsibly. He said that we should borrow for productive purposes. Right. I think that's the way to go. Corruption is an issue.
Right.
I think a lot of projects that are financed through debts, we find a lot of corruption in there. So there is need to keep corruption in projects that are financed through debts.
Because it just reminds me of what the doctor said earlier on to say, I was thinking when you was talking about the short-term versus long-term debt. And I think that part of the problems that we've had, correct me if I'm wrong, part of the problems we've had in the past is when ministries just borrow for long-term, I think they kind of becomes a relaxation to say, oh, we just spend, this will be serviced later, and people don't follow through. Whereas when it's short-term, this is me thinking that when it's short-term, then people are so attentive to know that the turnaround is shorter, therefore we are expected to perform. Would you think that there's a linkage between long-term debt and short-term debt in as far as delivery of expectations are concerned?
Yes, I think broadly the long-term meaning, for example, countries borrow from the World Bank and the IMF, and the repayment duration is normally long. It can take 30 years before you start servicing. The bilateral to some extent is that, but with private debt or commercial debt, it's very short term. You have to repay in 10 years, 5 years, you have to start repaying. So yes, we've seen a bit of, maybe call it negligence in terms of how governments have been managing these debts. If they borrow them from the multilaterals, in 10 years' time, maybe they don't care what will happen for the future generations.
Because people are just implementing the, whatever, whoever is managing the project. And I think to an extent, I might be not proven, but probably that's one of the reasons why we are where we are, to say people just get in there, they're managing projects, that's corruption. And by the time you turn around and say, oh, there was mismanagement of this project, the people are long gone who were working on that project.
Yeah, it's true. But let me emphasize the issue of corruption. Good governance is the way to go. Our processes of borrowing need to be transparent, accountability, honest processes. That is the way to go. We don't need opaque processes where certain key institutions, it could be the parliament, it could be the civil society, it could be the individuals, the people, without knowing, without the input. Let me say, for instance, there was a case sometime, I think it was 2015, the media reported that we imported, graders to make sure that there are rural roads there, so that our mothers, expecting mothers, could get to their nearest hospitals to deliver. But those graders turned out to be snow. And let's assume that we have borrowed...
They turned out to be what?
To be a snow grader.
What is a snow grader?
When there is a snow in developed countries, then you bring that here to grade the roads.
So inappropriate.
Inappropriate, yes. Equipment. Yeah? Let's assume that we have borrowed those resources. That is a loan you have taken. Now the question is, how are you going to service?
So that's negligence.
There is negligence. It's corruption in the process, because there is procurement process is very clear. We should visit and inspect the product even at the point of delivery before you make a payment. So how come now the graders were delivered, only discovered after delivery? So what it means is there is no road, of which if there is a road, we can put a toll gate and recover the money and service the debt. Right. So because of all these, some of these problems, this is exactly what we are saying. The government needs to put good processes, good governance is the way to go.
So strong institutions is what you're saying. In as far as managing debt, we need strong. The final, in 30 seconds for both of you, as far as debt is concerned in Zimbabwe.
For me, debt is a resource that is available to nations, especially developing countries. But it's very important to manage it prudently.
Prudent management of debt.
Yes,
Thank you.
Yes, the government should borrow, but I support what he says. Good systems should be in place.
We head for ourselves, but it does not exonerate us as citizens. We need to take part in processes. We need to learn what it is that we could do to make sure that we're participating. We know what's going on. We just don't enjoy the benefits, but we need to be to care about what it is, who funded, what does this mean. And so at Identities, we totally support citizens' participation in processes and support what the government is trying to do and say no to corruption. Until next time, have a good bye.